Welcome to the Pink House Chronicles, the official vlog / podcast of Ben Owens Music, your hometown music store located at 1803 Plum Street in lovely Remington, Georgia. This is the show we talk about music, gear, the shop, answer your questions, and much more. I'm Dave.
I'm Chase.
How you been, Chase?
Good.
Right on. This is the episode. We got just a little bit of gear today.
Well, we did, let's see. Yeah, you brought up your parallel mixer, the PHX to mess around with.
We'll do a little videoing of that.
And then we got a new shipment of guitars in.
Ton. There's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, we got a couple Jazz Masters, a few Tellys, a couple Strats.
Les Paul?
Yeah, we got an Epiphone Les Paul. Very budget-friendly stuff. We got the J Mask Signature.
That is sexy and it sounds good. And I think
really does. I mean, I've played that, and it plays as good as a Mexican Fender. It doesn't. If you just played it and no one told you it was a Squire, you just wouldn't know.
I think everybody who's always you question Squire, but I think Fender, the Squire line, has really picked up the quality for a while now, and like if people want a budget line, I would pick a Squire like those Starcasters, I think.
Yeah, and then some of those higher end models hold their value. We were talking about it earlier. As a lot of entry level guitars, you buy them and the value goes out the window as far as resale value immediately. And a lot of these, like the Jazz Masters, hold their value fairly well. So.
And they just dropped that Parallel Universe and baritone. Cabernita style guitar with the P90s on it. So it's getting just crazy, wicked good reviews.
Yeah, I want a baritone.
So, but come and check it out. And it's that J Mascus. I don't think it's going to last long. And I'm not just saying that because we work here, but it's you get it and you feel the neck and you feel everything about it is just sweet.
Yeah.
So, as far as anything new in your gear world today?
I got some pickups ordered for my guitar build. Now I just have to order the body.
Yeah.
The neck and the body. And I can get started putting it together and getting the finish, the lacquer put on the neck and all that good stuff. Ben's going to help me build it.
Right on. Today I ordered the neck plate for the Jazz Master, and for every one of my guitars there's always a specific strap that just speaks to it, so I made that order today. There's this company out of St. Louis that does some really cool designs and whatnot. I've got a couple of their straps and they're super comfortable, and you want to support the mom and pop stuff and not always get like the name brand stuff. Like I know you've got some couch straps that are just I got one for my birthday from my wife, and it was like, I'm like, where has this strap been my whole life?
Yeah, they're so comfortable. Like they don't get hung up on your neck or anything like that. They're balanced really well.
So yeah, I'm just waiting on parts and people to get production lines back up.
Yeah, everything's back ordered, but it's hard getting things on time right now.
And as far as like that, but yeah, come up to the shop, check out some of the new stuff we got in here. Definitely worth eyeballing. You might want to walk out with it.
Yep.
Last episode, we'll go into the questions. We're not taking questions so much this episode because we really wanted deep dive into the Tonewood debate.
Yeah, we've been dancing around this for a few weeks, and it's just like, okay, I guess it's time. It's a very controversial topic.
I think vintage versus modern would be a controversial topic.
Yeah.
And I think then you get the Tonewoods, and we've heard a lot of people talk about Tonewoods up here, and I definitely have my opinions, and I know you probably have yours.
I do. They're nuanced opinions, though. I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm not extreme in my opinions about it.
You're flexible?
I'm flexible. So my whole takeaway on the Tonewoods thing is I don't believe that the wood is a zero factor. Just to clarify, if anybody's not familiar with the Tonewoods debate,
please take us down this.
It's a debate regarding the type of wood that electric guitars specifically are made from. I mean, there's a Tonewoods acoustic debate, but this discussion is.
We need to clarify: are we talking electric or are we talking acoustic?
We're talking electric in my book.
Okay.
I think with acoustic guitars, the type of wood absolutely matters because you're actually hearing the wood. That's where the sound is coming out of the sound hole of the acoustic guitar. That's what you're hearing is whatever type of wood. If it's mahogany, it's going to be darker. If it's spruce top, it's going to have a brighter top end and all that stuff. But with electric guitars, it's different. Because when you hear an electric guitar, you're not actually hearing the wood. You're hearing the magnets in those pickups, and you're hearing the strings. But I do believe there's like a base level quality of wood that you need to have a guitar that's, that's worth its weight, no pun, in sound. I don't believe you can just put super fancy pickups on, an old carburetor and amplify it and it's going to sound great.
Right.
And I'm not a big fan of like composite, like laminate, like particle board.
Like those Ibanez Talisman are particle board and then they're just polyurethane.
Exactly.
Over.
Not a fan of that kind of stuff. But I think anytime if you get something, if it's even if it's a lower end piece of alder or swamp ash or poplar, which I guess the swamp ash they're not making those anymore because there's some sort of disease in the trees, some sort of bug that's decimated the crops. But another topic. But you can get less expensive pieces of all of those woods if you're doing a build, for instance, and I think that to me is where I stand. Where there's just not absolute cheapo stuff, but you don't have to have a $5,000 slab of some rare tree that only grows on the slopes of the the Himalayas or whatever.
I think it becomes. What is it? What do they call that? The cork sniffing.
Yeah, cork sniffing.
Where do you go and you're playing with this specific wood? I think we've had this discussion. Like the three main things that are going to impact the sound of your guitar, and I'm going to say electric specifically, is the guitar that you have, the pickup, more importantly, the pickups, the amp. And then go back to last episode. You want a cheap guitar with a good amp. I think an amp is going to be the most to impact the sound.
Exactly.
Followed by the style of the pickups because I've got different guitars because I want different sounds when I'm like tooling around at home. So that will, and then the player behind it.
Yeah.
I think that's the number one factor behind it. It just makes me. I could not but I've said this many times and I've had discussions with my friend Bill about this. I couldn't tell you the difference if you were to blind test. If you were to get let's say Telecasters, that's one of the most popular ones. If you got one all painted the same way with mahogany, spruce, pine, cedar, I would not literally probably be able to disseminate, say this is redwood, this is pine, this is cedar, and like that. No. I don't have that distinguishable here. It probably has to do with age and not a sommelier.
I could probably tell you if it was a different piece of wood. If you give me an extreme example like mahogany versus like poplar, just because one is a lot darker, sort of sounding thing, but other than that, no. And this has been proven true on a lot of these blinds, or these blind ear tests that other. There's some other podcasts on YouTube that
some YouTube
talking, they've done it and they've given people
the Amberton's videos have done that type of stuff.
Yeah, they have, and people have been like, guys that are studio guys get in there and they're like, I can't really tell.
You could play me an American Strat, a Mexican Strat, and then probably like let's say Chinese or Indonesian. I'm gonna probably be able to tell like between the affinity on the way up to like let's say custom shop because like the pickups are gonna sound. I'm like,
oh yeah.
But the wood, I mean, what is that? You might get loud where Jack White just takes a nail around a magnet on a thing and just does that kind of like old timey. This is what a guitar is. I mean, it's just the magnets with electricity through it.
That's what you're hearing. I mean, Les Paul, the man himself, the first electric guitar he ever built, the Log, was a prototype. It was, I believe, like a railroad tie, I think is what
it could be. I can't think of
converted railroad tie. It was that sort of shape, though. And he was going to just show up with that, with the pickups, mounted on it. And he was like, no, I don't want the band to notice. So he put the two wings on it that were shaped like an acoustic guitar, and no one noticed. And, if it weren't for that, we might all be playing straight guitars. So, there's no way, of telling. But,
So we've discussed this with acoustic guitars. Do you think let's say a vintage old electric guitar, well, let's say a 50s fill in the blank, whether it's going to be Gibson or fill in the blank, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Do you think that would, as it ages and dries out a little bit, impacts the sound? Like, say we got like a 50, let's say 55 is the matter.
Well, I think that definitely does. And there's a lot of factors. Obviously, like you said, the drying out of the wood. The old nitro finishes break down over time. That's one of the reasons we put them on our relics. They just sound better. They don't smother the wood. They don't smother your tone as much. You get more sustain through them. It just breathes better. And, you know, these poly bodies are just caked on there. And which is not to say there's not great guitars with poly bodies. But, you know, it's one of those things that's so subjective because it's like, you know, what kind of sound are you looking for? You know, if you're a metal guy and you got this tight, compressed, overly distorted sound, it doesn't really matter what kind of finish you have on your guitar. You're using active pickups and all this other stuff. You know, it's there's just so many variables, and I think that's one of the reasons it becomes such a heated and passionate sort of argument with people, is because the real answer to the question is a nuanced thing. It's not an exercise in polemics.
I think it becomes, I'm going to try to persuade you why I think my opinion is correct. Like, I was just thinking about Billy Corrigan thinks white guitars, and he said this on the record, are the best sounding guitars. That's his opinion. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just what he feels is the best. Versus, you know, I think like I love the pastels on those Fenders, man. They just pop in my eyes, and that looks good. It doesn't affect the tone whatsoever.
No.
But
there are some unquantifiable things when it comes to being a guitar player, and how you feel when you strap on a guitar, I think, impacts how you play, your confidence level.
Yeah.
And I think I like a flashy guitar. I feel like I play better if I'm playing a flashy guitar than if I'm just playing off the rack, so to speak.
I think it's that whole thing is like, if you wear a suit that day and everybody's like, hey, what's up? You're dressed up, you've elevated, like, versus your normal, you know, walk, you know, kick around dungarees.
Yeah, dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
And so you're going to you elevate, you feel good when you're going to go out on that day, you know, whatever you're going to do.
Mojo.
You get you a little bit of mojo. I think, you know, I think there's a bit of the mojo. It's like the 59 Les Pauls, the mojo behind that. Is there truth to that? I don't know, but you know, I think it's the myth behind it, that there was something special in the water and I mean, it could have been an anomaly in the windings, because you could probably pull particularly vintage guitars, and that's a whole other argument, I know, but even the Fenders, even though it was like the Model T, you could get 5 of the same Strat, same line,
and they'd sound different.
They're all going to sound different.
Yeah. Well, everything, you know, there was a lot more hands-on in the construction process back then than there is nowadays. There was no automation in the factory assembly lines, and so you know, your consistency wasn't as strong, which is actually one of the things people fuss at back in the day, is they used to complain about Les Pauls in the 70s because they were like, these aren't consistent.
Right, with
and
the
now,
ears.
Yeah, and even with the, you know, 60s Fenders, well, these aren't consistent. Some of the guitars that we think of as being classic guitars now were just trashed.
Right.
Like, we have a couple of Mosrites in the store, and they sound heavenly. And they're from the early 70s, you know, but a lot of the classic Mosrites, the guys from the Ventures,
junk.
hated them, said they were junk.
They hated the necks on them, I think.
And so it's just, it boils down to music in general is subjective.
But I think when you get into something like that, I was thinking about like handmade cars. Like, you get those old vintage, like, Italians, whether the Ferraris and of that kind of thing, where it's hand painted.
Yeah.
You know, the metal's hand done out. There's not one certain of, like, particularly vintage Ferraris that are going to be the same, and it's why you've got to go to an expert and to get it fixed, because you can't just go, I'm going to go get an aftermarket Ferrari Fender or tailored, because it's like,
there's no cookie cutter.
It is not. And I think I was just thinking about this as you were talking your opinion on it, your position on it, is like, also there's a certain amount of bragging rights too.
Oh yeah,
that it's got a specific wood, and that it's like done this certain way, and that you know, and that there's a bit of ego that goes into that.
Yeah, oh definitely, I think so. I mean, the thing with the 59 Les Pauls, there's only, 10,000 of them?
So
I think, made at all. I mean, that's one of the reasons they're so expensive. It's just out of sheer
well, the
scarcity.
myth behind who's got them and what records they've been on.
I mean, they didn't do that well their first go around. They didn't sell that well. They didn't make them for a few more years, and that's until the British guys in the mid '60s started using them, and then everybody was like, "I want one," so they had to start making them again. It created.
Well, I don't think people when they rebranded the Les Pauls with the what we now know as the S&G body was like, what's even Les Paul didn't like it. And those first
said, take my name off of that guitar,
and even the first those was 60, 61. Like the necks on them were not. I mean, they're notoriously the bodies will. I mean,
and the old tremolo systems that the early ones had.
Yeah. So I mean, it gets in the whole thing. But there's a certain you see now people want those.
Yeah.
For perceived, whether it's true or not, and I think it's true. It's like
the Flying V, that was supposed to be a futuristic thing in the 50s.
Explorer with
they didn't, and the Explorer as well. And even the Firebirds. These are all guitars that didn't really perform well the first times they came out, but then in later years they were reappropriated.
And it was Gibson trying to counter Fender, coming out with like and the Jazzmaster was not well accepted either. I mean, so they become classics or whatever reinvented.
But that's one of the things about music that is beautiful and musical instruments is that you can take something that was designed for one thing. Like the Jazzmaster, it's in the name. It was made for jazz guitar players. It never caught on with jazz players. I don't think I've ever seen a jazz player play a Jazzmaster, but it is an absolutely iconic guitar that's been played across multiple genres and just made legendary. So it's taking something and using it for something different than it was intended for. That's one of the beautiful things about music to me.
It is whatever you want to make it.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I think have we gone down that path pretty deep?
I feel confident in my opinion.
I'm confident too.
I think me and you actually pretty much agree on the topic, so that's not much of a debate, so to speak. But
no, we're in agreement. I mean, I think there's probably some slight differences in that. But I mean, if there's something, if you think we're full of, you just call us shenanigans on it. Disagree with
shenanigans.
This. We that's the beauty of this is
we are inviting a conversation. Feel free to engage in the comments and tell us if you think we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a magic tonewood fairy that's sprinkling mojo dust over specific woods over it, I mean, before we kind of went down, there's that guy in New York City who's been making guitars forever. Like, he made stuff for Hendrix, and he goes into old houses in New York, and there's just a documentary, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me right now, so I'll see if I can dig it up and post it in the link and everything. But they're like, oh yeah, these have this. It's old wood from old houses,
like reclaimed wood.
Wood. I mean, like I've got that Jazzcaster.
Yeah,
is master. Excuse me. Anyway, I digress. But let us know where do you stand on the tonewood, specifically electric. I think we'll agree wood does make a difference in the acoustic.
Yeah, I think so.
So, all right. Thanks for checking us out. Please share, comment, submit, and questions. Disagree with this, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. I think we'll be taking a lot more questions.
Yeah, and if you got something you want us to try and cover, let us know.